Okay, so for my third presentation, the topic is in the ecosystem economy. What's your strategy? This was written by Michael G. Jacobides. Okay, so first, now we're talking about ecosystem. So, according to this article, ecosystem is an orchestrated network spanning multiple networks. So, different firms work with a shared standard, shared platform, in a shared platform to make their products and services compatible within that ecosystem. So, they create links among themselves so that outsiders can't easily get into their ecosystem. So, an example in this article is Nestle when they created Nespresso. So if you don't know, Nespresso, it's a single-use espresso capsule. So it requires a special machine to work with the pod. So this Nespresso capsule only works with certain machines that's not available in the market. So they have so manufacturers have to work with Nestle in order to develop the machine to use the capsules, and they any other manufacturer cannot just create their own without um, using Nestle's permission because it's patented. So with this, Nestle created its own ecosystem with just one of their products. So, so these are the three structural changes in the economy that develop the need for ecosystem. So the first is the rollback of regulations protecting firms that once had the exclusive privilege of serving particular customer needs. So now organizations are free to partner with other companies in order to provide more integrated offerings. Nawala na yung parang uh, wall that prevents them from working with other companies, other manufacturing companies, or even other services. So the second change is the regulatory change and digitization of products and services. So ngayon na nga, we're in the age of digitalization, no? So it's blurring the separation between products and services. So this encourages the rise of product service bundles that provided by networks of interdependent suppliers. So companies that provide service can work with companies that provide products, so they can provide a holistic offering for the customers. So the third change involves technology that is revolutionizing how firms can serve their customers. Now our dependence on mobile devices and internet changing the possibilities of linking previously unrelated goods and services. Ngayon, pwede na because of the power of internet. It's getting faster. Mobile devices are everywhere. Everyone has it. So now it's building that new market, that new system, that new um space for products and service providers to get into. So now, hold on. So because of these changes, firms needed to design ecosystems to be able to offer all the elements a customer needs. So in this presentation, we discuss an ecosystem focused framework. So this is not a firm focused one, uh, which needs which states that the companies need to answer five questions. So the first one is, can you help other firms create the value? So it said that companies that have been successful in building ecosystem doesn't just focus on their own offerings. They find opportunities for other companies to be able to apply all the features that they provide to some other previously unrelated products. So for example, Google's Nest. So it's an IoT, I think. So they started as yung Google Nest, it started as a smart thermostat. It's just a thermostat that's remote controlled. And then eventually Google added an alarm. So, when there's syempre may certain parameters that's reached, mag-a-alarm na siya. So, it provided not just comfort, but also security. So, next, Google also offered, they partnered with LeafX. So, this company, they added a light alarm for the Google Nest. So, it is helpful for the blind who cannot hear. They will just see an alarm based on the light. And then Fitbit. They also worked with Fitbit to notify when the person is awake because it can be monitored through Fitbit, right? So they will change the thermostat because the person is awake already. And one more is yung si Mercedes naman. So it also notifies when the person is going home. So ibig sabihin turn on mo na yung heater or yung aircon. So, these extensions added value that Google alone could not do. Siyempre, hindi naman sila magde-develop ng car or ng another, ng Fitbit. They might, but meron ng company that's already providing it. Eh. They just have to work with them. So, they migrated to providing more remote control for home systems and appliances. So, as an ecosystem builder, you must also consider the incentives and motivations for potential complementors. So, you also have to consider how will they benefit if they join me? Or, like si Mercedes, what value will they get if they offer the connection with Google's Nest? So, focus on partners' needs. Otherwise, they will find builders with better alternatives. So yun, yes. What they're saying here is, you also have to consider nga the partners because as an example, si Nokia daw, um, yung app developers, parang they didn't treat them well. So parang they treated them as supply chain subordinates. So eventually, they all jumped to Android, and we all know what happened to Symbian OS. So, the next question is, what role should you play? So, there are different roles in an ecosystem, no? First is, to be an orchestrator, you need to have either a superior product or a service that is hard to replicate, or you have an IP protection or a large network of users and strong branding. So, for example, si Nespresso, they were able to protect their product or maintain as an orchestrator because they patented their product, yung capsule caps. And also Uber and Facebook, they have user-friendly apps that builds a larger user network. So they can also be an orchestrator. They can be the orchestrator in any ecosystem that they join. So for companies that cannot build an ecosystem because of lack of qualification and resources, they can interest large companies to buy in or license their IP and benefit from licensing revenue. Like if HVAC installer created remote thermostat first and presented it to Google, they can earn from the product that Google makes. So on the other hand, medium-sized firms like LeafX that added LED lights to Google Nest, they also partnered with Amazon's Alexa, Google Home, and Apple Kit because they had that technology and they had the opportunity to join different ecosystems, even with just one product. So they weren't an orchestrator, they were a complementer, but they were able to maximize what they could offer. Lastly, large firms can also participate as a complementer to some of the tech giants like Google and Apple instead of creating their own, especially if they are not sure what the combination of products will the customer like or when there are too many potential combinations. Okay, so that's for the role. And the next question is, what should the terms for participation be? So there are two key governance choices. So first is access and second is attachment. So first, access. So the builder needs to decide whether the system should be open, managed, or closed. So that's the three choices. So first is open. So an example of this is Uber drivers. Um, Uber's drivers, they are complementers, only need to meet the basic standard to participate. They just need to have a car, they need to register, and they are already a complementer. And then second is managed. So managed ecosystem is like Apple's App Store. So there's a clear criteria for complementers. They need to comply to certain metrics in order to join the ecosystem. So there's a limit in on their number and specific guidelines that's already set. So there's already parang a contract when they join. Ito yung conditions. If you don't agree with them, you can't join. So it's managed. And then lastly, yung closed systems. So an example of this is Volkswagen connected cars. So there are rules of participation that are tightly controlled. Hindi basta makakapasok yung any ecosystem. So in general, the more open the system, the easier it is to attract complementors and wide range of product because quality is but quality is variable. Like in the example of Grab, since it's open, it's easy to get in. Marami silang drivers, but you can't attest to the quality that it will always be the same. So the degree of openness should be determined by what matters to the final customers. So the second key is attachment. So this pertains to how exclusively attached to you your complementers will be. So for example, if mobile developers are not allowed to offer their programs to other platforms, it should have a stake in the company's success. Like for example, exclusive apps sa Apple Store, if they're not allowed to be sold in Google Play, they should have a compensation from Apple for being exclusive. So it will also depend on how attractive the orchestrator is. Like for example, it's Apple. If you're a developer who don't want to be attached to Apple, right? So yun. So that's the third question. And then the fourth one is, can your organization adapt? So it is important for the ecosystem members to be able to quickly adapt to the needs of their final customers and the desires and the ability of their complementors to collaborate. So it's not instant. They need to be able to adjust as a whole organization. So an example of this is Nike Fuel Band. Wala na siya ngayon. It's a fitness tracker that's connected to Nike products. So in concept, it's really good because they already have built an ecosystem within themselves. But because of Fitbit and other competing products, Nike discontinued the production because yung other products, they can just easily replace what Fuel Band is offering. They can just use Fitbit. So nawala na yung value of being linked to Nike. So in this example, si Nike hindi siya nakapag-adjust, hindi siya nakapag-adapt to how the ecosystem can provide value to their product. So traditionally, vertically integrated firms like Nike was slow to adapt to the ecosystem, so it lost its chance at the wearables ecosystem. So in contrast to that, Apple's success with iPhone by creating the iPhone App Store that allowed firm to share revenue from the apps being sold encouraged others to find ways to leverage the phone. So yung when Apple dati daw si Steve Jobs didn't want to open the App Store but he changed his mind and it proved to be beneficial for the company because when they opened the iPhone App Store, they both the developers and the company, they both benefited from it, from opening the ecosystem. So, participating in an ecosystem requires an outward facing culture and ability to manage relationships with complementors, which is not easy for some firms. Either, for one, create vertically integrated, tightly controlled networks like Nokia did with Symbian OS, or number two, create an open innovation and production, but providing only the platform, leaving the ecosystem management to users. So an example of this is Watson. So Watson is IBM's AI developer platform. So yung idea was, IBM is they will provide the AI developer platform, and then supposedly developers are the ones who are going to figure out what they're gonna do with the AI. But yung the initial enthusiasm for the product did not translate to any activity and engagement. So parang when you hear about it now, there's very little noise about IBM Watson. But it's really kasi sobrang advanced nung platform na yon, but it's rarely used. Hindi siya na fully maximized. So that's on that way hindi nakapag-adapt si IBM kasi iniwan lang niya parang they left the ecosystem managed yung users. They left that decision to the users. So next, so this is the last one. How many ecosystems should you manage? So an example of this is Alibaba. Now, Alibaba, it grew by creating an expanding set of connected ecosystems, starting in one market and shifting to the others, and refined by understanding its customer needs. So it started with 1688.com. So it's a wholesale marketplace. And then they created Taobao. Taobao is a C2C marketplace. And then they moved into Tmall. Tmall is a third-party seller B2C ecosystem. And then after having all these marketplace and in the ecosystem, they developed Ant Financial. So now it is the world's most valuable fintech firm because now that they have these marketplaces, they created a financial firm that can support the payment systems for all their marketplaces. So large tech firms like Google, Apple, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft are aspiring to provide unified service that are shifting to even more sectors, mostly in voice-activated assistants. Diba nga, uso na ngayon si Alexa or yung mga version nun with Apple. Also, mobility firms like Uber are expanding to Uber Eats, Uber Everything, or sa Philippines, Grab Food, Grab Car, Grab Pay, Grab Padala. So, also, they're getting into the payment system as well, just like Alibaba. Ngayon, meron na tayong GrabPay and they also have, parang, di ba, marami na silang offering sa payment system. So, this shows the company's ambition to integrate multiple ecosystem and enter the customer interface. So, the more involved they are in different parts of the ecosystem, the more they are able to capture the value from every customer on every interface. So another example is Samsung. They sell 40% of Android phone. So when they threaten to create a rival OS, parang if they threatened Google na if they didn't comply with their demands, they will create their own OS. So in this case they had the upper hand and Google eventually gave in to their demands. And then so in this case they had the power in the ecosystem even if hindi naman sa kanila yung Google OS. But since they are the biggest seller, they had Google follow them with what they need. Okay, so in conclusion, so yun nga, business is undergoing a paradigm shift with all the changes that I mentioned earlier. And the very nature of competition is already changing. So, not creating a new service or product, integrating existing ones, and collaborating with other firms. That's why it is important for firms to shift from traditional rigid strategies based on prescriptive frameworks to dynamic experiments based on a process of inquiry, starting with the 5 questions in this framework. That's all.